Good. So to open, I would like to share a short poem with you. It's funny because I was reading this poem this morning, and then I found something in my journal that really tied in just quite nicely. And I was able to find, it's a poem by Wendell Berry, and I was able to find him reading it in his voice, so extra special. So I will just play that for you, and then we'll open. It's called The Peace of Wild Things.
The peace of wild things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
And this is from a lovely little book called Doing Nothing by Stephen Harrison, an exploration of the post-spiritual life. Give up the whole attempt to characterize life, to control it, to locate yourself, to sequence yourself in time. Serenity, tranquility, balance will have to come in our cup of coffee or as a gift of the universe, not as the promised result of our contorted asanas, our awareness meditation, or our endless attempts at doing nothing. Now the meditation of yoga. So if you're lying down, let's sit up, please. And if you've been sitting with your legs crossed, just take a moment to stretch your legs out. So this first position that we're going to come into is probably our simplest, just in terms of structure, anatomical structure. So the thing to keep in mind is not so much, what it looks like or the initial sensations that you're feeling, and this goes for really all of our yin poses, that we want to approach them as if we're going to stay in them forever, for a really long time, that we're sinking into the body. And at some point just forgetting that we're even in a posture and just letting the body reveal itself just very naturally. So we have a lot of time. We hold it in order to do that, to cultivate that sinking in feeling. So let's bring the soles of the feet together and just be very relaxed in the hips and the knees. You don't have to come to some predetermined place that you think is correct in terms of alignment. And then if you're feeling a little unevenness in the hips, or you have some injury or pain in the hips and or the knee, always feel free to bring some. I'm using a pillow here on my left, or if you have bolsters, to bolster up. So again, we're not interested into, shining a light on the discomfort or injury or pain or contraction. We're interested in really melting into it. So it's as if we were, putting a stick of butter in a warm pan. It wouldn't just go liquid. It would really take its time to do that. And that's what we want to do. We want to go from this rather, if we've not been practicing today, stiff and a little achy, to just a nice softness, a melting into the body. And then for those of you that are somewhat new to this particular approach, we want to avoid a lengthening of the lower back muscles. This will just activate them. Nothing wrong with this, but in this approach, we want to relax them. Yeah. So the relaxation comes through the unstacking of the entire spine. So let yourself really just relax forward. And then again, more bolstering is always appropriate if you want something forward to keep that excessive torso weight out of these little tight nooks and crannies. So you just set your body up in a way that's unique to you. Begin to relax and begin to soften. And I particularly like what Stephen was saying in the little passage that I read, just about not having an expectation around our practices, whether they're meditation practices or yoga asana, to just simply allow ourselves the gift. Really, it's a gift that we can give to ourselves in this time, to just be in the presence of our experience. And it doesn't have to be necessarily esoteric or complicated. Presence is just presence. If something feels challenging in the body, if something feels challenging in the mind, you're present with that. We don't have to make it any more complicated than that. So it's not only a deepening of the physical body into this softness that I was mentioning, but it's a way and an opportunity for us to really feel and cultivate this sense of presence within ourselves. So in a way, it's a defocusing of all of the busyness and the noise and the chatter of the external, and just a quieting down into this presence of the mystery and the movement of our internal energy. So let us very gently and slowly roll up. We can, think of this as restacking the spine, just coming to a nice relaxed sitting position. So we're going to go from something, relatively simple to, for some of us, especially in our hips and pelvis, a little more complicated. But again, not to worry, not to have any consideration about what this looks like. The Always I like to think of the shape of the body, the suggested shape, just as a suggestive template, and then how your body fits in will be very unique to your skeleton, mostly your muscles, and how you're holding tension. So what we're going to do is we're going to just extend the left leg out forward. Yeah. So I'm going to turn a bit. You don't have to move this left leg at all. You can just keep it where it is. But I want to show you the angle. I think this is the best way. So then we'll take that right leg and then we're going to open that out around back. Yeah. For some of us, the tendency will be to then pull it in. So the knees are lined up. This is not what I want. This is just a different thing. Some of you know this. We're going to gently start to push this right leg back. And I'm only pushing it until my right hip starts to tug. Yeah. So for a lot of us, this will mean leaning over to the left, especially if the hips and the pelvis have torqued and misaligned. So this is where the bolstering on the left side is good. So once you've pushed that leg back a bit, yeah, like this, yeah, so we're not needing to straighten it out, but just somewhere where it just starts to tug. If you happen to be leaning off to the left, pillows, bolsters, or a combination, so we can start to come forward. Yeah, we're not necessarily wanting to go to the left, but again, if your range of motion takes you there, this is where you wind up. Then forward could be good. If you're not so much leaning to the left, you could take the bolstering on the inside of this left leg and come forward. If you are good in the hips and the hamstring and you want to come to your forearms, come down into it a little bit deeper. It's a little unfamiliar if you don't do this on a regular basis. The hamstrings are tricky, extended hamstrings, not to mention the hips. So again, don't be concerned with anything but the feedback that your body is giving you. Again, the idea or the feeling or the imagery that you can just stay in this pose for a really long time and let your body just be nourished by the compression that it's receiving. And if your breath has responded to this position, if it's unfamiliar or uncomfortable, or you've leaned into something that you can feel is a bit dense, just allow the breath to naturally start to relax and soften. So we can sort of use this as a gauge very often. The body and the posture will guide you to an appropriate breath. So if the breath feels like it's a little quick or short, or it's not flowing, this may mean you need to maybe adjust the body a little bit, bolster up more, back out a little, or just simply relax more. this this body that you have is very, very capable of, experiencing itself without, a background commentary, without a running dialogue with it. And this is particularly interesting to explore when we start to feel the energy of the connectivity of the body. Often we misunderstand that a yoga posture is meant to go to a very specific place and do a very specific thing, when a deeper understanding is that we are compressing into a connective system, into connective tissue that is body wide, and we can start to feel that. And there's no way that our dualistic consciousness, our thinking process, can follow this. We have to simply feel it. It's a form of surrendering, that your whole body is vibrating, that your whole body has these inner places of spaciousness and density. So the shape of the body, the amount of compression that you're applying is meant to just reverberate through this connective system everywhere. It's ubiquitous. So any superimposition of thinking or opinions or diagnosis, it's just a bit exhausting. You can just relax and just feel this presence. Again, not to complicate presence. Presence is just simply what you're present with, good, bad, or otherwise. Okay, so let's come on out of this slowly. And this is one of the poses I was recommending last week or so, that if you're by yourself, any expression is okay. But this is where we find that Om actually originated when you were coming out of a pose like this, and we're like, oh my God, oh my God. So I understand tight hips, hamstring, and pelvis. So let's come on up and let's see if we can bring that right leg around front. And then we're going to just place the soles of the feet back together. So right where we were, again, any bolstering under the hips or the knees, any bolstering in front to support the body weight. Do take your time to relax your shoulders and your upper spine. And then just, again, a melting, a sinking into it, just a feeling that you have all the time in the world, that we're just going to be here. We're just trying to feel the presence of the body and then everything that it evokes, which is significant. and also to begin to really explore and understand that the feedback that you are getting is completely unique to you. Like I said, we're not trying to put the body in a specific position to get a specific result. The feedback is absolutely not universal. So the feedback that you're getting, be very sensitive to that. It may mean a physical adjustment. Something may arise for you to contemplate. There may be something to reevaluate. And this is always changing. This changes often from moment to moment, from posture to posture, and from class to class. So this is what I was talking about earlier, that we want to relax so completely that we're no longer interested in the geometry of the body, but we're just interested in what it's just naturally and organically revealing. And this is what we take as feedback. Sometimes it may mean to come out of the pose completely and just take a long rest. It may be an emotional edging into an edge of something emotional. So it's just completely unique to you. And what's particularly, interesting, and I think it's also rather beautiful because it's allowing us to go into a different dimension of ourselves, is that when this, this surface clutter of the mind does start to eventually give you some space, it starts to slow down. We start to come into a recognition that this experience, this feedback that we're getting is, first of all, it's not describable and it's multidimensional. So this becomes a very interesting discernment where we're not then listening. The chatter and the clutter may still be there, but deepening in, we realize that there's a process and an aliveness that is also asking for our attention, and how we then allow our awareness to permeate into this indescribable, multidimensional place. Once again, this is unique to you. So again, let's roll up nice and easy. Good. And then well, we can extend both legs out. Let's extend both legs out. But this time we're going to keep the right leg out. And we're going to start to bring that left leg back. And again, oftentimes this is a misunderstood pose that we're going to bring it in. This will even up the hips. Nothing wrong with this when we come forward. But as you can see, we're offsetting the hips, particularly the pelvis. We're externally rotating this left hip. And then again, just to whatever you feel, just a slight tugging here. Don't force this part, yeah, because the relationship is back here primarily, in here, and back here, yeah? So if you find yourself, again, going to the right, this is where your bolstering would be to support yourself. So the higher up the bolstering, typically the better, so we're not way off to the right. Again, the general direction is coming more forward. So if you have a little higher bolstering, it can support you coming forward. If you want to put it on the inside or have it on both sides, yes, or anywhere in between. This is just a lovely exploration of these, that extended leg hamstring. If your forward fold, it feels like it's in a rut. This is the antidote to that, because it's weaving into places that a forward fold just typically doesn't get, and most of us can get in a habit with our forward fold, and it's going to reach a point where the patterning just holds it. So this, for most of us, is way out of our comfort zone and out of that pattern. So wouldn't want our hamstrings to get in a rut. And just speaking of, habits and ruts and patterns, one of the reasons to move so slowly, and one of the reasons to really, contemplate this idea that the experience that I'm having is completely unique to me. It's just everything that you're holding is unique to you, and how you enter into that is unique. So what we get to do then is from the slowing down and the knowledge that the response we get going to be different, going to be unique, is that we practice, if that's the right word, we practice. How best to say this? We practice the nature of the experience before a habitual response is evoked. So to explore the nature of the experience, just the experience, before the habits of the mind are evoked. And before we know it, we're just off to whatever the habits happen to be. So I'm not saying to make a technique out of this. I'm saying this is an opportunity of moving very slowly, holding for an extended period, and realizing there's no expectation of what one should experience. So the experience itself, the raw texture of the content of your experience, before the habits of your mind get evoked. Good. So let's come on up, please, from here once again. And let's take that. Once you're up, we'll take the back leg and bring it around front and oohs and ahs. And I'd like to come forward one more time just because we can. But what I would like to do, same thing with the soles of the feet together, but I'm going to invite you to either, if you have the large bolster, this works very well here. If you don't have the large bolster, any combination of pillow, towel, blanket, I would just like to take yeah, this works great. So any kind of pillow or towel, blanket. So this is going to allow us, after all of those different sort of angles of range of motion, this is pretty much just the lower lumbar spine. So we're taking, for the most part, the hips out of it. So I'm trying to bring the femurs up so the hips are not stressed, and relaxed so the knees are not stressed. So again, a nice soft rounded lower back, just coming into it and just feeling that, relative, it's always relative, isolation into that lower back area. And we'll just stay here for a bit. And one of the reasons that I emphasize this study of our uniqueness is because oftentimes we can have expectations of ourselves that are below our conscious thinking. And we just, from really day one or two, are picking up all sorts of conditioned habits. And that's a whole nother story. But we want to feel that this uniqueness means we can just be with what's happening right now. That there's no expectation to have any kind of experience, and that the complexity of the body woven into the threads of the emotions and feelings and woven into the thread of the psyche will give us very truthful, honest, direct feedback. And this is what we're trusting. This is what we're exploring. Anything on top of that, any teachings, are just helping us to hold this space in a safe and sacred way so we can do this exploration. So let's come on up, please. And let's have completion with this. So you can now remove that bolster, open up your legs, and just lie down and make yourself comfortable. We'll let the chi disperse a bit and find some equilibrium. So let's take a rest here. Just let the breath deepen just very slowly and naturally. So we're just feeling the presence of the breath, not as any technique, not in any way to gauge or to judge it, but the simple presence of the breath. And not to complicate it, but just to feel it. And again, just to continue to make this distinction between the clutter, the chatter, the noise of the mind, and this domain that we're continually relaxing into, where our experience is not describable and multidimensional. And this is really a gift, that it's not describable. So we just put the map aside, and we're much more available to the territory as it uniquely expresses itself to us. Okay, so let's come on up. And I'm getting out one of my towels, so I'm going to demonstrate this with a towel, as well as a bolster, as well as two bolsters. So pick a height that is appropriate for you, and especially since we're going to come into a neck twist. Yeah, so this can be delicate territory for some of us. This can have a lot of fear and anxiety. We can have ideas about what we should and shouldn't do. So just listen to the way that your body's expressing. And again, not to set this up so the initial intensity is where we're headed. We're wanting to be able to stay here so we can relax, and these threads can start to respond to this compression. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. So I typically do this because I know how it feels in my upper spine. We're just going to lay on the belly with a big bolster. Yeah. So the way we're going to start this, I don't know if I can talk, and I want to show, I'm going to do it this way. Oops. I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. So what we're going to do, we're just flat on the belly completely. Legs can relax out. We're going to take the right ear and just place it on the height here, but making sure that the shoulder's not up as well. This would just only be awkward. So I clearly have my shoulder off this, yeah? Then the weight is going to offset the twist, and my right ear will be on this particular height. The left arm can just relax off to the side. This may or may not be appropriate for you. I do understand. So then you could use the small bolster, works fine. And like I said, there's a lot of, just a lot of stuff there. But the same thing, don't get the right shoulder. Right ear, nothing else. You can almost not see me. And then if you don't have the bolstering, I use this height of a towel. You could, bring it up a little higher. You could make it a little lower. We just want to twist into the neck. If keeping the legs straight out isn't totally supportive, you can bend that left knee up. Sometimes that's nice just to get the hips in a good spot. I don't know, though, for me, this towel, though, this is more just like a pillow. And I could just go off into a dreamscape, which would be fine, but you may want to use a blanket or two towels. Let's see with two towels how it works. Oh yeah, so but just kind of feel through it. You'll feel it. It's not particularly comfortable, but that's what we do. And again, the feedback may ask you to reevaluate. It may ask you to withdraw, adjust, contemplate. Just be open to learning, open to listening to your body. No agenda, no outcome. I also think it's very important to just be increasingly sensitive when we start to trust and listen to this feedback. We could also call it this inner voice, this intuitive voice, is to be able to listen to it without judgment. The, our capacity, or just more our habit to judge, is also a way that we fragment our experience. We fracture things. We dissipate. So if we find that happening, and those judgments, as we know, can be extensive and they can be subtle and they can be tricky, we just try to relax. We try to open more space. We try to see the judgments as clutter, chatter, and allow the awareness itself just to relax into where it comes from. Yes, allow the awareness just to keep relaxing back and in. Allowing your awareness to relax back into its source. So I'm going to suggest to come out of this very, very slowly and gently. Let's use some support of that left arm. And this is sort of like one of those ooh and ah moments for some of us. You can keep your bolster in place. I'm just going to remove mine. And what I would like you to do is to just come up onto the forearms with the hands towards the elbows. So I'm just making a nice supportive elbow under the shoulder, arms crossed in front. You can cross them a little more if you'd like to go more to the elbows, but just to come into this backward bend. Do make sure that the legs, well, I'm not going to switch around. I'll just explain it. Just let them open a little wider than the hip so we can have a little sway in that lower back. And then from here, just let yourself explore the range of motion and the release and tension and all of this complexity in the neck. So whatever you find there, slow down enough again to kind of melt into it. No rush, no hurry. We're not trying to shake anything off. We're not trying to push anything away. We're not trying to ignore anything. But again, whatever the experience is, we just allow ourselves the presence of it. And do notice my language. I'm not saying let's find a way to become present with your experience. No, that's not necessary. You already are present. So whatever it is that's in the realm of experience, this is your presence. So just enjoy it. Or if you're not enjoying it, be present with that you're not enjoying it. Good. So let's, if you're open to it, we'll do the other side. So what this would entail then is, like I say, the big bolster, the little bolster, a combination of blankets, towels. We'll take the left ear and place it on there. Just make sure the shoulder isn't up even with the head. We want the shoulder off whatever bolstering you're using. The right arm can just relax to the side. You can even angle the chin up a little bit. Just find a spot where it's, the compression is definitely having an effect. And I do think this is an ongoing positive reminder, especially in an approach like this, when we just have a lot of opportunity to honor our individual variations, and that we're not interested in a cause and effect relationship. We're not working on these specific areas that we think are going to magically just open, and then we go about our way. But we're working systemically, where you're working into very complex systems. And a healthy system is one that knows how to repair itself. So, call it yoga. Yoga is just a way we hold space for this exploration. But what we're really doing is we're stimulating and we're opening pathways of aliveness in the body. This is the flow of the prana through the body. We're opening these pathways. We're rehydrating cells that are fundamental to the health of these systems. And certainly we're loosening, structural misalignments of the bones and joints and pockets of density. And just as important, we're allowing the mind to rest in an inner domain of safety and peace. This is so important to the deeper work in the body, that we allow ourselves to trust and relax and feel this inner tranquility. So ultimately, it's not or ever a gradation between pain and pleasure. We're exploring everything also that's in between. Pain and pleasure are simply the two ends of our pendulum. And as we pendulate, we lean into one, and then we allow ourselves to swing back to the other. This is not only true of our yoga and our body, but this is life. Good. So let's begin to emerge from this lovely position. And I'm going to suggest, again, just use that arm to pull yourself up. Not necessary unless you choose to go back into the backward bend that we did on the elbows. But once you're free from this, if you just want to, you can come into a child's position if you like. You can just roll onto your side. Sometimes it's nice just to support your head. Roll onto your side in a nice fetal position, or you could just lie flat on the back, again, just to let the joints open and let everything move. So let's take a rest. We're going to add another part to this, but let's take a rest first. And let me just say that again. I think that's such an interesting thing for us to contemplate, especially now when we're in this sort of collective, concern about our health. That a healthy system is one that knows how to repair itself. So this work that we do, this contemplation we do in this inner domain, is really just assisting and kind of preparing the various systems so they can repair themselves. And this is why I often think that, pain is such a tricky thing, because um, a lot of us have, such strong conditioning to just, immediately alleviate it, push it away, or suppress it. But often, pain is just saying, let me have your attention, but let's look in a different direction here. Let's see if we can allow now the pendulum to swing away from the discomfort. And then how do we listen to that? So it becomes this is what I'm really expressing. It's a very, very unique journey. So the way that we place the body, the way that we breathe, the way that we listen, the way that we relax, it's just changing all the time. This is such a fundamental nature of reality, this changeability. So for this next thing, if you have even an inkling that you need to use the restroom, I would go use it. And then I'll just show it now, and then I'll show it again in case you're coming back from the restroom. But if you have to use the restroom, even a tiny bit, go do it now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of your blankets. I'm hoping everyone has a blanket. Won't probably work so well with a towel, but have a blanket. And I'm going to wrap it up, roll it up pretty firmly and relatively high. You could use, if you have a bolster, you could use the big bolster, but it's not going to have the same effect. And we're going to be pretty specific here for the psoas at the pubic bone. So I'm folding it in half like this. So this is just, one of these typical wool blankets. So I'm starting from this shape. So fold, fold, fold till you get this nice shape. And then I'm going to roll it up as tightly as possible. So just do your best with this. You will get some effect. You don't have to mimic this exactly. And this may indeed be way too much, yeah? So if I have everybody knows the height of these cork blocks. It's just a little bit higher than one of these cork blocks at its lowest level, yeah? But it has a little bit of softness to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in front of us and come over it right here at the pubic bone here. So right in this area here, which is fairly even with my hip flexors. So I don't need to be too high up in the belly, yeah, and not too low down where the top of the thighs are going to inhibit it. So if you find the pubic area right here down about 6 inches from the navel, this area here, yeah. And then what we're going to simply do, I'm going to recommend that as you place the body on this area to first come to your forearms, yeah. And I wanted another towel. You may want to have another blanket or towel up front. Yeah, something like, oh, you can't see it. So allow the legs to relax. So I have the roll placed right where I suggested, yeah. So kind of in between the hips, low, not in the low belly, more at the pubic area. And then on the forearms, but we're not going to stay here. This is just to make sure as you start to apply the upper body pressure, you'll feel this will be like, oh, I'm very glad he suggested to go to the bathroom first, yeah? So down here, then, because we just turned the neck, I don't want to turn the neck again. I'm using my towel to just place the forehead on the towel. Yeah, you can kind of see that. So my nose isn't pressed into the floor. My neck can be relaxed and supported, and then just allow the chest to relax down. That's a little too much. Yeah, there we go. I hope this is translating. Yeah, so just like this, yeah. Forehead on some height so you can breathe and not have to turn the neck. The roll into this rather unpleasant, uncomfortable place. But this is just lovely to start to affect and release the psoas area. Slow, careful compression. And again, if your breathing has responded in a shortening or a somewhat erratic way, you calm the breath down a bit. You can even invite some breath down there. You can breathe into the pelvic area, breathe into this lower intestinal area, breathe into the pubic area, and just feel that the inhalation provides a lovely expansion, gentle but expansive. And the exhalation provides a release of that expansion and a letting go, if you will. And I'll just go over it briefly again in case you're just joining us back from. So we're taking this blanket and rolling it up fairly high, so it's a nice tight roll. That's what we want. We want the tightness of the blanket to provide the compression. And then we're going to come over onto the forearms and place it low, right at the pubic bone. And then just relax the body down and over it. Have a little something for the forehead so you can breathe without twisting the neck, the head side to side. And if it becomes, uncomfortable to the point of distraction, or you don't feel unsafe, or you begin to feel a little nauseous, it's perfectly fine to go back up onto the forearms, release it a bit, breathe, let it relax. Again, we're not trying to force. No need to try to understand what's happening here. The anatomical complexity of the psoas in this area would only be a distraction. So just let yourself, just go as deeply as you can. Just allow yourself to feel this sort of cellular, fascial, ligamental, muscular mix that's here. And not simply to breathe mechanically, although this can feel very lovely, but also as the breath is approaching and expanding and releasing this area, the breath is just breathing life into this area. The breath, the aliveness, the prana, the chi, this is all weaving. This is an interaction that's always happening in your body. Good. So we're gonna come on up, but let's just do this in stages. So just come on up first to the forearms once again. Yeah, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go now right into the pelvis with the same thing. But I would just like you to have a little bit of movement, and I can't show that so well. So two things. I'd like you to experiment with just side to side. Yeah, so side to side is very lovely, but also to extend one leg out and bring the other leg up, and then one leg out and the other up. So we're kind of offsetting this torquing of the pelvis. So either way, side to side is nice, but then let's say right leg I'm stretching out, left leg I'm pulling up. And this is precisely what the ligamentation of the pelvis does, is it pulls it out of alignment. So it's pulling one femur back, and the other one is allowed to go more forward. You might say that's not exactly accurate, but you know what I mean. So that's what I'm suggesting, is to pull that one back, push the other one forward, and just feel what your sense of mobility is in this area. This is not just pelvic, it's also hip in terms of how the head of the femur fits into that hip socket. Very interesting. So nice to come out of this slow, and then we'll investigate from the other side. So what you can do here now, if you're up on your forearms, is just start to bring yourself back up into a child position, or just come to your knees, whatever works best. And if you can get a little forward bend in this child's position, yeah, that's good. And then that's funny. I'm looking at myself and saying that's good. So just have to take my word for it. And then again, just a little bit of movement here, whatever works. Yeah, just to kind of soften this area. Good. And then if we want to come back up, and there's a good chance you're going to need to re-roll your blanket. So taking the blanket, again, from this nice width, and of course this depends on your blanket, and roll it just as tight as you possibly can. So the tighter the better, yeah, so we have a compressive surface and not just folded over. And then very simply on this side, what we're going to do is to put it in back here and have the feet flat on the floor. And we're just going to elevate the hips up a bit and just place the back of the pelvis. So this is not the lower back. I'm sliding on this floor a little bit. So the hips come up, and we're just going to place this on the back of the pelvis. Yeah. So from here, this is pretty even with my hip bone here. Bolstering, lower back would be more here. So when we come down to the forearms, we first let the upper body come down, then let the legs relax out. Yeah, this is perfect. And then just be right on this. And just let the legs relax out. So a little bit wider than the hips. So we've now just reversed, obviously, you don't need me to tell you that, from where we were to now we're coming into this pelvic area from the other direction. So really the same thing, but just two different directions. And as always, if the height or the height or the position, the way it's compressing does not feel safe, is not appropriate, always withdraw, make an adjustment. Your body is always going to tell you the truth. Opinions and judgments, even facts and statistics, at some level are just noise. So we're not interested in the noise, we're interested in the truth. And that's probably a distinction. I'm sitting here just imagining that we could extend that distinction into, many areas of our environment right now. This discernment between, all of this information and facts and statistics and opinions and judgments as being noise, and how do we sift all of that noise? How do we sift the noise and just be able to sit quietly with the truth? And certainly if we're going to, make this self-inquiry from the container of our yoga has a very simple answer for that: silence, stillness. I'm not sure if it was either Rumi or Gandhi. It said something like, stillness, silence is the language of God. Everything else is poor translation. It was I think it was Rumi that said that. Silence is the language of God. All else, poor translation. So coming into a very subtle breathing, just as I invited you to move a little bit when we came out of it to feel the mobility of this sacral pelvic area, I would like you to notice when you breathe into it that there's movement that's horizontal and there's movement that's vertical. So you can just explore that. Do this very gently, but bring some intention to the breath and the movement weaving together. You can breathe into this area as deeply as you'd like and feel the movement vertically. So from lower to upper, and also feel it horizontally from side to side. Good. So let's put the feet on the floor. So bend your knees and put the feet on the floor. And you may be ready to remove this. You could elevate the hips and slide it out from under or roll off. Or you may want to bring the knees up to the chest very slowly, together or one at a time, and just kind of drift in and out. However deep you make this forward bend would be up to you. So we have the time, just use it if you want to explore a little bit of, passive movement into this area of the body. It's just a sort of an endless exploration, this sacral pelvic hip area. And then if you're completed with whatever you're doing, let's invite some rest. We'll take a little time to rest and just let this area vibrate and reverberate. And part of the, the imagery, maybe I'll talk a little bit more about this, but what I said earlier about this compression, rehydrating and stimulating the flow and the channels for the fluids of the body. So oftentimes this stiffness and this achiness and the pain, it seems like it's substantial and it's solid, but when the fluids start to get congested, when the fluids start to block up, this is often what this feeling is. So the slow compression and release with just great patience and great reverence for the body starts to rehydrate it internally. This is not hydration of drinking more water. And we can drink more water, but if the body's not able to absorb it, these pathways of the fluids, then we're not going to be fully hydrated. And I do think sometimes it's very lovely to shift our imagery from this feeling of brittleness or, solidity to more of fluidity. To really feel this sense of ocean within us, because, it really is an ocean within us. To just visualize that these fluids are warm and flowing, life nourishing, vast without boundaries. And then certainly the surface can often become choppy and rough, but the depths are tranquil and quiet. I've been listening to interviews and just interested in people holding their breath underwater. So people that do free diving, but also individuals that surf these incredibly huge waves. So one of the things that they consistently say is that when they do fall off, there's literally tons of water that is going to come on them. And the two things that they need to be able to do is be able to take a deep breath and hold it and completely relax and surrender to the motion and the aggressiveness of the water. So I just think it's a beautiful metaphor for when we are moving into rough water, to just be able to breathe, to really feel the support of the breath, just a deep breath in and a deep breath out, that we're sustained by this breath, and to be able to relax. So let's come on up, please. Please. And I'm just rolling up a blanket. You may or may not want to do that. Yeah, that's good. So let's come into a forward bend, and we're really sort of following this trail of the pelvic hip area based on what we just did. So we're just going to come into an isolated forward bending. So I'm going to recommend to extend the right leg out first and take the left leg and just bring it up and in, just anywhere along the inside of the right leg. So don't be too specific with it. Let the left hip and the left knee relax. An option, why I roll this blanket up, you could either take, if you have a small bolster, you could put it under the knee so it doesn't disturb this left foot under the right knee. Yeah, so it's just elevated a bit. This will take some compression out of this right hamstring area. Or you could put that rolled blanket if you don't have that little bolster. So they both work just as well. Yeah. So either that's just optional. If you want to just keep the leg out, the back of the leg, lower back relationship, especially the left lower back with the right leg extended. And then we'll just let the body come forward. Just again, the same softening of the lower back, not to extend out, but to kind of come down and in, and then use any support that you feel is appropriate for you to just rest the upper body weight. And I say especially after what we just did, because the body is, holding energetically, vibrationally, and somewhat structurally holding that compression that we just applied. So we want to respect that. Yeah. So we're really honoring the interconnectedness of the body as we move into it. And, passive yoga position is a very ideal place to explore, deepening and slowing down and really just relaxing your breath. So always feel free to add the breath, weave the breath into your experience, deepen it a bit, slow it a bit, completely let it drift away. So again, a softening of the lower back muscles, relaxing of the shoulders, letting the weight of the head draw you into the neck area. Even if it's just for a few moments, to just explore what you're holding there. Come out if and when you need a little bit, go back in. And when I say experiment, I do mean exactly that, because oftentimes if we come into a more directed breath, or it doesn't feel right, then it's not. So always trusting that the breath, no, excuse me, that the body and the posture will guide you to the way, just the ideal breathing. But sometimes we ease out of that a bit, we experiment, and then we can feel this is not what's appropriate right now. So we're ideally moving towards a place of equilibrium, equilibrium with the physical body and with the breathing. And then it's seamless. And again, this is unique to you, to your body, to your state of mind. So let's slowly drift up from here, please. And let's switch legs so we can extend the left leg out and we'll bring the right leg in. And so I'm giving you that option to support that left underneath the back of the left knee, yes or no. And if you did it on one side, you don't have to do it on the other. If you didn't do it, you can do it. We're not interested in some theory of symmetry. And then the same thing, having support, whatever that support would be. If you're not coming to a supportive area on your arms, or you may not need support, I'm just assuming. So really let the threads and the fiber of the lower back determine, coming into just the perfect position for your own unique experience. And, I can't really emphasize that enough, and maybe I have emphasized it enough, but just the implications and the contemplation of this sense of uniqueness to our environment, to the way that the body is responding. And once we really start to feel and accept this, I think it just allows us a certain freedom. It allows us a certain freedom to really respect the limits and the edges and the ways that we explore this body, because we're getting this, constant feedback. And I'm not suggesting certainly that we don't want to explore, outside assistance. Yes, because this is yoga. Yoga has a lot of, valuable offerings. But once we, get below the surface, once we feel safe and relaxed, in a way we're on our own. In a way we're exploring whatever is presenting itself. And so that's our opportunity. That's the beauty of presence. So once we're present, once we feel this presence, we just explore the texture of it. Doesn't matter if it's a thought, doesn't matter if it's a vague sensation, if it's a humming anxiety in the spine, a pain in the knee. We listen, explore the very nature and texture of it, not a superimposed piece of information. So it's a beautiful I think it's a beautiful acceptance to accept this, um, just this unique, changing environment that we live in. And then the beauty of this is we begin to notice that with every, uh, within every sensation and even within every perception, there's an inconceivable depth. So if our default is to go to our opinion or our, habitual commentary or narrative, we stay at this surface. So every sensation, every perception has just an inconceivable depth to it that we have the opportunity to explore, worlds within worlds. And then when we do become, more interested in this awareness, so not as interested, our contemplation moves away from the actual discomfort, the contraction, to just awareness itself. So this opens up another layer of our yoga, is where then do you experience yourself? What is the nature then of this awareness that is experiencing? This is precisely why we want to relax through the symptoms. Allow the symptoms to become almost irrelevant. They're going to respond. But this awareness is very interesting. This awareness is woven into the fabric of our own self-identity. So what a lovely contemplation. Where do you actually experience yourself? If we're not using those points of pain and contraction and discomfort, which are just the way that the body's inviting us to go deeper. Good. So let's come on up from here. And before we lay down, I'd like to give you a couple of choices to either come into something primarily restorative, especially with the pelvic compression that we did, or a gentler backward bend to kind of offset everything. So if you want to come more restorative, take a blanket or a towel and just make yourself a nice pad. We're not going to do anything to create compression in the lower back, so we just want this to be supportive and to kind of cradle the pelvic area. And then something to put the feet up onto. And what we will do here is just get the pelvis onto this support that we have and bring the feet up. So you can, if you have the bolsters, you can use the bolsters. You can bring something under the knees. I just want to elevate the femurs a bit so the hips can relax. And so the pelvis now can feel really soft and supported. Whether you choose something for your neck, that's up to you. Try not to make a pillow in the back of the head that the chin comes down. Just a nice, maybe little soft roll under the back. If you're wanting to just have a bit of a mild backward bend, what I'm going to suggest is the large bolster, or I'll show it with a combination of pillows, but have something for your heels for this. And what I mean by that is just something soft. Yeah. So the heels, this is a little bit of elevation of the femurs, but I just want the feet to be able to relax. And often the compression of your mat or floor into the heels isn't conducive to that. So what we would do once you soften something soft for the heels, then take if you have the large bolster, just tuck it into the lower back and allow yourself to relax over it. Yeah, very nice. If you don't quite have that bolster yet, then just a combination of your pillows. I'm not suggesting a roll into the lower back. It's too site specific. I want something just to support especially the lower cervical spine. So that's what the bolster was nice for. So you can just bring in some. I'm going to need another one. So you can bring in some pillows. Yeah, and then something for the head. So it just feels supportive. Backward bend, yes, not so deep, just enough that you can relax the arms out to the side, relax the legs, and just really allow yourself to relax. So we're sort of in this spectrum from restorative, that first one, which is complete comfort, no compression, to just a little bit of compression, kind of easing into the yin, which is just a component of discomfort. Just sift out all of the noise, and not necessarily the external noise. The external noise comes and goes. I'm talking about that internal clutter that's just continually cycling, just mostly old habits of the mind. It needs something to do. So just sift that, just sift out the clutter and the chatter of the mind, and just sink into the simple presence of your own essence, the simple yet mysterious aliveness that you are. And let your breathing be very, very gentle. You feel the gentleness and the delicacy of your own breathing. And just simply be open and available to whatever you touch in this presence. This breathing that we consciously allow in and allow out, this is life. This is our aliveness. And this life is not in conflict. So we become conscious of this life. We become conscious that we can breathe in this gentle, nourishing way, and that any conflict is one we're holding, is one we can start to soften around the edges. We don't have to push it away. We don't have to let go of it. We just start to allow the residue of the conflict to just soften a bit, just loosen a bit, and let the breath start to wash through it. simplicity, patience, self-compassion. This is where we rest. This is our place to simply be still and quiet, rest, and allow this miracle of life to be alive in every one of our cells, because it is. So let us begin to stir. If you are in the restorative pose and you'd like to stay there, feel free to do that. If you're in the backward bend and you would like to stay there, feel free to do that. So just make yourself comfortable in any way that you need to. And I'll just move towards closing. So just make yourself comfortable, and obviously you can continue to rest or go about your way. But let's just take a little bit of time to just come into ourselves, our silence, and we'll sit with our closing. Silence is the language of God. All else, poor translation. Namaste.